Hey guys, welcome to the Fox and Burger podcast, where we bring you closer to the Asian side of the furry fandom, one episode at a time. I'm your co-host Fox.
And I'm Burger.
And in this episode, we're going back to Indonesia, this time with Chirros and Claud. Chirros, a rhinoceros, has been in the fandom since 2009 and started his videographer career in 2015. He is the current con chair for Pawai. Claud, a tiger, has been in the fandom since 2017 and started staffing for Pawai in 2018. We'll be asking our two tour guides questions about Pawai and about public perception of the furry fandom in Indonesia. So without further ado, let's give them a big awoo.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much, Michael and Burger, for inviting me and Cloud to the podcast. We were happy to be here.
All right. Yeah, it is good to have you here both on the podcast. Let me try this real quick. Selamat datang di podcast kami.
Good attempt. Good attempt.
You did it well. Very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear from you guys. I know for Chirros, I don't think I've seen you ever since, what was it, back in LIFC 2019, though occasionally I see you on Discord. And then for Claude, I have not seen you since TFF 2020 before, COVID. And so it's really nice to hear from you guys again. So as always, let's start with the basics. Briefly tell us about your fursona and how you joined the fandom.
Right. So I'm a rhinoceros. So I joined fandom since 2009. It's actually that long. The DeviantArt years. I start in DeviantArt. I'm interested because I'm looking at I'm trying to find Digimon arts, mostly Digimon and Pokemon, and I think how come there's a lot of creatures that I never see before, and I feel like I want to join and create the same thing, and that's the time when I started. Yeah, I guess that's it.
So, as Michael said before, I am a tiger, and I am also a fursuiter and occasional photographer. So, how did I join the fandom? That's a good question, actually. I guess I've been a fan of animals and just like animal cartoon in general since I was a kid. Watching cartoons like Lion King has always been part of me growing up. And then I saw like furries for the first time around 2012 or 2013. But back then, I thought to myself it wasn't really my thing. It was like, oh, so these just like some people in an animal costume doing their own thing. But then I went to Indonesian Comic Con on 2017, and back then I saw fursuiters for the first time, and immediately I fell in love and hooked to the furries basically. And since then I did more research and eventually became one, I guess.
So now I want to go into the next section for section 2 of the podcast, Guest Spotlight. You mentioned conventions, Claude, and that's exactly what I want to get into because we brought you guys onto the pod to talk more about Pawai, which is actually a con that I've never been to, despite going to several cons in Asia. And so I guess to kind of give a little bit more background information, though, tell us more about your guys' role for Pawai. Like, what did you guys actually do?
So I'm actually the chairman of the con and also the head of art. So I'm doing the arts for the con itself, decorations, the theme, some gimmicks, and what the chairman do usually just like telling the staff what to do and organizing some stuffs. What about you, Cloud?
So I handle the programming at Pawai. I also manage social media as well as public relation. So basically, I create the schedule for the con. I construct the events for Pawai, and I also create all the social media posts and all the emails.
Okay, so my next question then here is, what was the impetus, the motivation for starting Pawai?
So Indonesia is a very, very huge country. We separate into islands. There's Sumatra, Java, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, and each island have furries live there, mainly in Java Island. So I'm thinking if there's like an event in one place where it could be a reason where people can travel around to one place and gather together, it will be a great idea. Basically, to unite all of us.
If I can kind of cut in here, this is actually kind of a question that we got on Twitter during our Twitter blitz. This comes from Lucent Cross, and he was actually kind of interested about the sort of like history of Pawai. So could you guys kind of like maybe like walk us through exactly like how did you guys go from furry hangouts to like a full-blown con? Like we're kind of interested in the history of that.
Okay, so I remember it's 2017 where there's actually three local furs going to Forum in Malaysia. Actually, that's the first time when I'm not actually alone from Indonesia traveling to another furry conventions. The time I remember it's Benji, me, and Black. So after Forum, we have a good time, and then when we arrive back at Jakarta, there's a yearly fur meet that held around like last week in December. That time is like one of the largest fur meet that I ever been to in my own country. That time we have like 30 people, and then me, Benji, and Black like kind of winks to each other like I think we're ready to make our first con. So from there, Benji actually form a team from that time until now that we manage a fur con.
Can you remind me again, like to kind of cut in, what year was that when you guys made that team? Did you say it was 2017?
Yeah, it's the end of 2017.
Gotcha.
And our first con is on mid 2018.
Right.
It's around August. So we get like 4 months to 6 months to prepare.
And I guess to kind of relate this back to Claude then. So Claude, when did you, how were you contacted then to be part of this team? Because I know that Chirros mentioned it was like Chirros, Benji, and Black. And I'm just kind of curious, like Claude, how did you when and how did you fit into this team?
So basically, I joined the team around 2018. So I'm not like on the first draft, I suppose. But back then, the team need more person to handle social media as well as the public relation. So they contacted me, and basically I joined the team.
That time I remember we have around 6 to 7 staffs. So it grew from me, Benji, and Black, and then there's another 4 people coming, which is Cloud is one of them.
So it seems like you have a pretty small team compared to other U.S. conventions and such.
Right.
And we still are.
Okay.
Wow.
So I know that both of you have been to several cons, and it's not just the ones that are here in East and Southeast Asia. You've also been to other conventions in the West, like the U.S. Most likely you have been learning from different conventions and how they're run. So in light of that, what makes Pawai so special? What's the one thing that sets it apart from other conventions?
So actually, we still have a furry convention that have the dealer's den, programmings, the fursuit lounge where change fursuit, and then you can have a whole venue to fursuiting at. But what sets our con different, I think, is from the name itself. We actually make the name Party Along. So we want everyone to actually come together and have a party. So we kind of want make Pawai to be sort of like festival. So we have the vibes, the party, the festival vibes. For example, in the first year, in 2018, we actually take the theme, the traditional Indonesia local theme, where one of the programming, the main show of the con itself is actually, we call it prasmanan. So it's actually the ceremony where we eat food, some kind of like a vegetable rice, and everyone around 40 minutes able to sit down together and then take the food and then eat and have fun talking to each others. In the second event, we have the theme is actually street art, the urban jungle. So the main attraction of the con itself, relating to the theme, we have 2 of them. One of them is the glowing art gem. Usually in furry convention, you can draw in one huge paper, like a paper roll or a huge whiteboard. You can actually put marks or draw on it. But this time you can actually draw in the wall, like the whole wall. We make a box around like two square meters, where you can actually make a graffiti or make a drawing. And then we shot all the drawings with UV light, so all the art is glowing because it's the expression of the street art. And also we make the DJ party at the hotel rooftop. I think it's on the ninth floor of the hotel. So
Wow.
when you're dancing, when you're having a rave party, in front of you is actually Jakarta skyline. And it's only for that theme because we're not going to have it on another next theme. Also, we have another plans for the third event, but it's coming. Yeah, because the pandemic, so we kinda hold it for now.
Right.
So I think that's what separates from other furry conventions, I think.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more fitting for an island party than a rooftop DJ and a traditional lunch. Speaking of rooftop hotel parties and such, tell us a bit more about the venue for Pawai 2019, which I believe was the Yellow Hotel Manggarai. Tell us what makes the venue so special, and why did you choose it for this convention?
Okay, so we have the expected attendee count, so we know how big is the venue that we're going to pick for that year. I think we researched around 10 venue. We ended up found one of the most suitable for our budget. That time is a Yellow Hotel Manggarai, which is the 3-star or 2-star hotel, and have the meeting room on the second floor. So we rent all the meeting room, and it kind of fits the expected attendees count. Also, so it fits the budget, and also because the theme is street, and the hotel itself, the theme is street art as well. So we kinda just need to add a little things on the decoration, and then it just becomes the vibes, like the connection between the con theme and the hotel itself.
Wow, so it just kind of like worked out perfectly because like the hotel already had like a design that was, as you mentioned, like street art, and that was the theme of the con. So I guess in terms of decorations, you guys really didn't have to do too much work, I suppose. I think it's really cool. I kind of want to go back quickly to what you mentioned about like the Indonesian festival kind of thing, like the dinner, I guess you would call it. I really have not seen any other con that has done that. I've seen cons that do like dead dog parties, but that's not really something that's like part of the con itself. I think that's more like an after con or like maybe nighttime event that is usually optional. At least for the cons that I've been to. So to kind of have like a special dedicated time for either lunch or dinner. I'm assuming it was dinner, right? Like, what was it, a dinner
It was
time
lunch.
event? Okay, so it was a lunchtime event. I think that's really cool. And then everyone can I don't know if this happens to you guys, then I guess after everyone eats lunch, then you guys can have like a nap time event or something like that. I know I
It's
get
not
tired.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reason we can pull this off is because the small attendee rate, so we can actually still able to control, if you know what I mean.
So like you had to do catering, obviously, like you have to hire like, chefs or companies to do catering, but obviously with like a lower attendee count, then it would be easier to like manage how much food you have to order and like, how do you transport all that food to the venue and stuff like that.
Yeah, true.
Right. So back then, we had less than 100 attendees, so that event was manageable. But our attendees number grew for the second year, so I don't think we are able to do that event again. But we will try to find another gimmick where it fits the theme to keep those experiences going.
Okay, yeah. Now, without going into too much detail, can you tell us more about, in terms of organization, like how is Pawai run? What's the division of labor like? Because I imagine that'd be a little bit tricky given the smaller team that's running this.
So we split the division into three main divisions. The first is the administration, like papers, permits, even including the budgeting, finance, administration. The second is experience, where you have the programming, the art, and what this going to feels like, what this going to happen. Where's the maps, right? The stage, the dealer's den, who's the dealers, and blah blah blah. And the third is IT, where the IT team develops a website and a system where you can actually register, make a payment, and then have the names to put on the badge and everything. So that's the main division in Pawai, three of them.
And we also have a team of volunteers to help us running the con.
Right, that's a really important thing to mention. How many volunteers did you guys have? What was it, back in 2019?
In 2019, we have around 4 volunteers. In 2019, we have like 2, very small. The third one, before we postponed the event, we actually plan to have around 10 volunteers. Yeah, because they increased the number of the attendee on the third one, we increased the number of volunteers as well.
I think that having that kind of like amount of volunteers, like definitely any kind of volunteers is really helpful to any con, especially seeing how, again, you guys have like limited resources. So I say good on you guys. And I think that hopefully you guys will have more volunteers like when COVID kind of like abets a little bit. That actually brings me to my next question, which is actually, this question is coming from the same person as before, Lucent Cross. This is a good time to ask that question, I think. Given how the COVID pandemic is still going on, do you guys actually have any plans on hosting a virtual or online con? Because that seems to be kind of like a returning or a common theme for conventions nowadays.
Yeah, actually, the whole staff have been discussed about it, but we haven't planned anything yet. But I remember in the end of 2020, because we postponed the event, we actually made a campaign to keep the hype going up. That time we created a jingle. It's called "Sleep It Away" on YouTube, right? And then so everyone can actually draw, having their Sona or original character drawn in a transparent background, and then we compile all of them into one huge crowd that will appear on our music video.
Yeah, it's basically like a big art collaboration. It was really fun.
I've got one last question here about Pawai, and then I'll be ready to move on to our next section. And it's a little bit more of a personal question. So what was one memorable or favorite experience that you guys had at Pawai?
Oh, okay. I'll go first. So, of course, it's going to be the closing ceremony. Because
did you cry? Did you cry?
No, the first... I think the first year and the second year we cried a lot. I think Claud also cry like crazy as well.
I cried.
For me, it's like we've successfully pulled the first con.
Right.
I remember it's like everyone in the venue is like shouting "Pawai, Pawai" like that, and it's like the moment that touched my heart, and I'm sure the staff as well. And it's like, whenever I go to any furry conventions, like I never cry that like long and like loud that I don't want to show my face to anyone. I think Claud also have his own experience.
I mean, yeah, to be honest, I kind of agree with you. Like, the closing ceremony is one of the most heart-touching moments, especially since we felt that all of our hard work just finally pays off. Seeing, we've made this, like, our attendees happy, and we bring all the furries all over Indonesia together. It just brings a certain joy to like our hearts.
Right.
It's just a really nice, indescribable feeling to like know that this is like the epiphany of your hard work and all of the things that you sacrificed. As Chirros said, it was like our blood, sweat, and tears. But yeah, I kind of agree on that. It was something that hold a special place in my heart.
And you guys definitely have the right to be proud. I think like you guys started a con from scratch, and you guys are a fairly young con. I mean, overall in Asia, I found that the cons tend to be on the younger side. And I think that, for example, Infernity, I think they started in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. But that's not far off from you guys. And so I think JMOF like was also kind of similar. Oh, and then for example, Furry JOA, I think their first con was 2019, it was either 2019 or 2020. Again, more power to you guys. Me and Burger support you guys all the way. And I guess we'll be on the lookout for if there's going to be any more news about Pawai. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a good segue into our next section here. We kind of want to talk more about how furries are perceived in Indonesia. That's going to be our sort of comparison contrasting section of the episode. So my first question here is just that. How does the general public view furries? For example, do they think it's like an extension of anime? Do they think it's cosplay, or do they think it's like something else entirely?
So I think how public see furries in Indonesia is pretty much similar to cosplays. They saw it as like a pop culture where you can be this cartoon character, or they kind of don't care if this character is like your own creations, because when they saw us in fursuit, they just call, hey, Mickey Mouse, look, that's Mickey Mouse, like that. so I don't think they kind of care if like we create it ourselves or not. But if there's people that into pop culture will see us pretty unique, because we kind of create the persona or the character ourselves, like the design they never see before in cartoons or the show they watching. What about you, Cloud?
So I kind of agree with you. Like, especially in Indonesia, furry is not something that you see every day, even in other part of the world, I guess. But I believe so far the public reception of furry has been positive. I had many experience going public shooting in Indonesia, and so far it has been a lot of fun.
Wow.
And so far, like the people view us as mascots or as a cosplay. There's also one time where someone thinks that we are actually asking for donation, and so they actually gave us money. So that was kind of funny.
They thought you were
overall,
what again?
As they asked, they thought we are asking for donation, basically.
Oh.
True.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of
I
funny.
don't know, like wildlife preserve or something like that.
Not really, because so here's the thing: in Indonesia, there are usually I wouldn't say like street artists, like they put on like costume, or if you ever seen something as the living stage community or the silver human community, yeah. So basically they perform on the street and people give them money. So it's more like a street artist. So yeah,
Usually-
basically.
Usually, you can see the Doraemons or Marsha and
Right.
the Bear, or some, I think like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse also, also there in the streets. So they're working as dancing, or some people playing guitar to actually ask people to give them money for donations, or it's just their job.
Sounds like I found a job opportunity over there. Continuing the topic of public fursuiting, I have some personal experience with this myself, but basically it gets really hot and humid and sometimes difficult to fursuit in just jungle weather,
It is.
whether that's Indonesia, Thailand, etc. But what I want to know is, have any of you ever run into trouble with like the local authorities, with bystanders? Can you tell me about difficulties with that?
Okay. Yes, I have personal experience. So I visited at the National Monument in 2019, but that was during the election season. And during that time, face covering was prohibited in public places. So basically, I put on my fursuit, take a couple of pictures, and then a security guy came in and basically told us to not fursuit. So I had to take off my fursuit hat and just cancel the photo shoot session there.
I remember that you need to change your own fursuit in like a train station, right?
That was a different event. So basically, we fursuited at in a car free day, and when we tried to go in the mall to de-suit and into our regular clothes, the security guy won't allow us into the mall, so we have to de-suit and change in the station's bathroom basically. So that was pretty fun. It was definitely an experience. So one thing that I learned from my first sitting in Indonesia is you definitely have to get a plan B, because most likely you will run into an authority figure and you have to find another alternative to continue fursuiting.
True, and to add it up, it's a must to have a handler. For example, security will came and ask like, where you guys come from, and then if there's the handler also able to become the PIC. His job is the one to explain like where are we from, and I'm going to responsible because you cannot see their faces, so I'll control them. All fault is on me, like that. When you become the PIC or the handler, it's a must because the handler needs to find like a convenience place to change the fursuit, and like Claude say, have to come up with a lot of plans, like plan B or plan C. For example, like this place not allow or too crowded, and then you move to place B. Usually in some places, we're not even allowed to take a photo for our Instagram. We cannot do that. We need to pay some money. I remember it's even a mall. In the center of the mall, you have like a huge park. You cannot even take any photos there. I don't know why, but at some places we can actually pull the. It's better to say sorry than permission. We can just like we plan. Okay, we have a 15 minutes time frame. We just wear a suit, take photo, and then we just run. we actually do a lot of that.
So just take a picture before security came.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that you may have to like pay some money. I'm assuming that you're paying like whatever police or security guard in that area. Is that right?
True.
Yes.
Like they might be like it's their station or it's their like area of responsibility, and like you may have to pay them. And I actually kind of want to ask a question because this actually popped up during the Tie Tales interview we had with Alder and Kyochi, and they mentioned that when they were fursuiting in Thailand, sometimes they kind of have to like to kind of use a little bit of a touchy word like bribe the security guard or police officer. Like, is that kind of what you're seeing here, or like is it like a quote unquote bribe, like to give them money and they won't say anything, or like what's going on there?
Right. Okay, so
I would say so.
yeah, true. Oh, I think I have one experience where actually the security guard want me to format the camera. So I think that's the right time that you actually bribing them, like maybe give like around $10, like here's $10 for you, but can I keep the footage and I will stop, So
Right.
yeah, it ever happened to me during the fursuit photo shoot before.
So this is like all this is kind of like indirectly answering one of the questions I have, but I do want to ask that questions. Like, I know that at least in my mind, and again, pardon me for I guess being ignorant, but I usually view that Indonesia is like a fairly conservative country. It's also a really religious country, but then I know that furry is this kind of phenomena that comes from the West, and so I would imagine that sometimes there would be this sort of culture class. Like do I follow furry culture or do I follow like my native local culture? And it's just, I guess like my question is like, does that conservative mindset, does that ever like affect how furries behave in Indonesia? Whether that be affecting the furry themselves, or does that affect like public perception of the furry? I'm kind of curious what you guys have to say about that. And I know it's like a really big like question, but like to your best ability, I'm just kind of curious like what you guys think about that.
Don't worry. So I think we kind of lucky that the national television did show us Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. So
All right.
Our childhood we did watch Digimon. We have like Cat Dog or Tom and Jerry. We have that.
Wow.
So at least the public they already see it on TV before. The creatures, the cartoons, and the pop cultures. So I think without those, they will looking at us at very, very, very weird. So because they know what's Mickey Mouse, they know what's Disney and those cartoons, those pop cultures. We can actually tell them that we are cartoons, we are cartoon characters, we like them, I admit that I did get this, like because I was I'm a bachelor degree, you know, and my family doesn't really like me when I'm wearing my fursuit because they see me as like a clown, you know. So I'm pretty sure like a lot of parents or people see us like a clown, like we mentioned before, the street performer who beg for the money. So yeah, it's up and down. So at least they know it's a cartoon, it's a pop culture. But at some point, they saw us like a super childish one. But we're not. What do you think, Claude?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's the difference between public perception and family perception, as you mentioned. Like, for me personally, public perception has been positive, but family perception is a bit on the other side. As Chirros mentioned before, my dad mostly he sees like being a furry as a phase, so he didn't really approve of me like dressing up as an animal because he didn't see it as being professional or being mature, I guess.
Oh.
But yeah, personally for me, it doesn't really bother me. For me, it's about doing what I love and what I enjoy.
Yeah, because they doesn't know the furries, right? I mean, it's actually more in the pop culture. You can actually have a lot more friends when you have like-minded peoples. So it's not really the first thing that and parents says that you look like a clown. It's not really that bothers me. We can think that we have friends. The world is much bigger than clowns, you know.
Exactly. And also, I just want to add that being a furry definitely helps a lot for me, especially since I moved from Indonesia to the United States in 2018. And being a furry definitely helps me during my adjustment time, during the transition time, because being a furry from Indonesia and in the United States is very similar. It's more about how close or how similar we are from each other rather than how different. Because being a furry is part of me, and it definitely helps me in many ways.
And it's kind of interesting because I think that like even if you were to kind of look at the fandom from a financial quote unquote professional sense, like you actually do see people who have benefited from the fandom in terms of finances, because you have people who are either fursuit makers, you have people who are artists. I know we interviewed Daza earlier on the pod, and I know that he's a very successful fursuit maker. There are a lot of artists out there. You can probably make a lot of money on these kinds of things. Fursuits in the States can maybe go up into like the several thousand. You being a furry on YouTube is also a thing. I think we saw that with like Majira. I'm kind of happy to hear though that it wasn't like at least against my expectations, that there is a sense of like openness, I guess, for the like Indonesian public perception. Is what I would say.
True.
But now let's talk about Indonesia as a whole. So, Indonesia is one of the largest archipelago island countries ever. Basically, 270 million people live along tens of thousands of islands, 150 million people alone on Java Island, which probably makes it the largest, most populated island on Earth. But it's not just Java Island, it's not just Jakarta. Furries exist all over many different islands of Indonesia. So how do you all get together, basically? How likely are furries to travel between islands for in-person meetups, for example?
It's actually back to Pawai, right? So the reason why we create Pawai is because to unite them, actually.
And yes, as you mentioned before, the population of Indonesia is mostly centered in Java Island, and it's the same case as furries. Basically, most furry lives in Java, but are also furries living in different islands. But from my experience, it's very unlikely for furries to travel between islands. For example, Daja, he lives in Borneo, and I've traveled to Borneo to meet him basically, and he also been to Jakarta to meet like the Jakartan furries. So I think it's very likely for them to travel between these islands. And also when Pawai happened, as Chirros mentioned, there are many furries from all across part of Indonesia that came to Pawai. So I think that's what really brings us together.
I think Berger asked a really good question about, basically Berger is asking what is the effect of geography on furry culture. It's not something that a lot of us will really think about, or at least for in the States. Well, Claude, you live in the States, so you kind of know that the States is also a fairly huge country. And so it's kind of rare for someone on the West Coast to just go to East Coast cons. They have to kind of plan in advance. They have to, save up some money. I mean, if you live next to MFF, then yeah, you could probably commute, but not everyone has that kind of luxury. And so I like how you guys, to go back to what Chiro said, I like how you guys mentioned that, one of the reasons that you started Pawai, if not the main reason, is to kind of like unite the Indonesian furries, because otherwise people would kind of be relegated to just staying in their home islands. Like I guess like there's something to kind of look forward to, and you can kind of meet up with other furs. Like I'm pretty sure they have local hangouts, but it's also nice to have like the one national, if you want to call that, like the one national hangout.
For example, it's like we the other way around. So for example, as a Jakarta people, we travel to Yogyakarta. Usually, there's a group of furries in Yogyakarta actually willing to create a party just to greet us.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
It happens. So whenever there's the furries from Yogyakarta, we also make a party in Jakarta as well. So it happens.
But I guess there's a geography effect somehow, especially for furries who lives outside of Java. I know that most furries who lives outside of Java, they mostly interact with other furries through online medias such as Telegram, Discord, or whatever, and which makes it even more special when we came there, or when they came here as in Java Island, because they don't meet other furries like that often. So I guess having a party to greet them, it's a good way to basically welcome them.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for giving us so much information in this episode, especially to a place I've never been before. So I'm really jealous that Berger got to go to Indonesia and I haven't. To kind of like wrap up the episode as we are nearing towards the end, I do want to go back to Pawai. And again, congratulations so much for all the hard work and the successes you guys had in hosting Pawai in 2018 and 2019. Assuming we live in a world where there wasn't this pandemic, where there wasn't COVID, where would you see Pawai in, let's say, like 3 years? Like whether that be like a venue change or whether that be like a programming thing, like where or what would you see Pawai in 3 years?
It's a good question. Oh my God. So I think we're still kind of not sure actually, but maybe let's hope the pandemic fading away really fast, so we can actually back to do our third event, and then maybe plan for the fourth or fifth. I don't know. So, but maybe let's not talk about not only Pawai. Maybe more focus to the community, because I'm pretty sure that in like few years. Pawai is not the only event in Indonesia, because the community also grows from now to like next 3 or 5 years. Like for the information, we have one Facebook group where everyone unites there. Everyone is like registered there. We have like around exactly 922 members on the group. So like a single con wouldn't do the justice. So I think. I'm pretty sure there will be another furry convention, like maybe outside Java,
right?
Or maybe a market event, probably, and even like the community, like the young becoming adults and so on, and then we can see the Indonesian furs becoming more familiar in front of foreign furries, Like, oh, you're the furry from Indonesia. Oh yeah, I know you. Like that. So that's my take. What about you, Claude?
So I agree with Chirros that our number grew every year, and I personally think it's a really good thing. I want to see this community grow every year, and at the moment, the majority of furries in Indonesia are students with the median age around 19 to 20, which are fairly young, which means that most furries in Indonesia are not at the moment are not very financially stable.
Hmm.
But hopefully, as times goes and we matured and we became more financially stable, I hope that more furries from Indonesia can travel to other cons all over the world, and also furries overseas can travel into Indonesia. So I hope that in the next 3 or 5 years, the borders will shrunk, and we will see more and more from each other.
Claude, Churros, thank you once again for joining us today. It was a pleasure to hear from both of you. We learned a lot today. We learned about party festival vibes, traditional Indonesian themes, DJ rooftop parties. We learned about several islands coming together, uniting in the name of furry. We learned about paying off the local authorities for some Instagram photos, hashtag Fursuit Friday, and of course, crying at the end of a very successful convention. But before we go, can you give us your social media credentials? How do you want people to find you on the internet?
Right. For YouTube, if you want to see my films, just go to YouTube and find Chirros White, CHIRROSWHITE. I did draw as well. It's Kid Rhino Boy at Twitter. I guess that's it. That's my two public social media.
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. My username is at LETIGRE_C. And yeah, also check out Pawai on social media, pawai.id on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And also Pawai website, pawai.id.
Once again, thank you so much for coming to this podcast. This has been the Fox and Burger Podcast with Burger.
And I'm Fox.
And we will see you again next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.